in chapter 10, I believe. And so chapter 10. So we've been going through, let's see, let me actually start. It's like it's good when I actually start because then I don't have to figure out what to do when I put this on YouTube. So we're continuing through 2 Samuel. We're in chapter 10, and we've been talking about how David has been unifying the uh, the um, the different tribes and all the different people of Israel. He's been unifying and what's going on there, and it kind of brought everything together. I think it was chapter 7 that it kind of said something about like he uh, he can like rest in peace, not like die, but there's like peace now again. But what we're going to see here in chapter 10 is that there's a little bit of warfare still going on, and we kind of saw some warfare this last week too. But there's some warfare, and what I think that's talking about, because this is a big one here. This is David and Bathsheba today, and so we're seeing this warfare is kind of setting us up for the plot of David and Bathsheba. And as I was kind of reading this again, and it doesn't have to be like this, but it kind of seems like that war is what kind of leads to that sin and indiscretion type of thing there. But there's all kinds of details around this. Probably the most famous story of David, which is fascinating. So so let's start off here. We got 2 Samuel chapter 10. So let's see here. I'm going to share the screen with this. And you guys let me know if you can't hear it online.
It happened after this that the king of the people of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his place. Then David said,
I will show kindness to Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness to me.
So David sent by the hand of his servants to comfort him concerning his father. And David's servants came into the land of the people of Ammon. And the princes of the people of Ammon said to Hanun their lord,
Do you think that David really honors your father because he has sent comforters to you? Has David not rather sent his servants to you to search the city, to spy it out, and to overthrow it?
Therefore Hanun took David's servants, shaved off half their beards, cut off their garments in the middle, at their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said,
Wait at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return.
When the people of Ammon saw that they had made themselves repulsive to David, the people of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehab and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers, and from the king of Maacah 1,000 men, and from Ishtab 12,000 men. Now when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the army of the mighty men. Then the people of Ammon came out and put themselves in battle array at the entrance of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah, Beth-rehab, Ishtab, and Maacah were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the battle line was against him before and behind, he chose some of Israel's best and put them in battle array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he put under the command of Abishai his brother, that he might set them in battle array against the people of Ammon. Then he said,
If the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the people of Ammon are too strong for you, then I will come and help you. Be of good courage, and let us be strong for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what is good in his sight.
So Joab and the people who were with him drew near for the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. When the people of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fleeing, they also fled before Abishai and entered the city. So Joab returned from the people of Ammon and went to Jerusalem. When the Syrians saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they gathered together. Then Hadadezer sent and brought out the Syrians who were beyond the river, and they came to Helam. And Shobach, the commander of Hadadezer's army, went before them. When it was told David, he gathered all Israel, crossed over the Jordan, and came to Helam. And the Syrians set themselves in battle array against David and fought with him. Then the Syrians fled before Israel, and David killed 700 charioteers and 40,000 horsemen of the Syrians, and struck Shobach, the commander of their army, who died there. And when all the kings who were servants to Hadadezer saw that they were defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians were afraid to help the people of Ammon any more.
Okay. Oh. I missed that Elaine was coming in. So all right. So what when Elaine gets in, we'll talk with her. So what did you hear in this one? I think there's a lot of setup in this one.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Instead of the Syrians, I have Aramean. Frank,
These whippers. All of them.
every time they've been for the Syrians, I have Arameans.
Yeah, let me look here. It's probably just a translational difference. I wouldn't be worried about it too much. Let's see. What does this one say? Yeah, this is advanced too. It's what's probably going on is this is New King James. King James translated a bunch of stuff to just different wording and all of that, and that's probably just one of them. So it would be a similar group of people. Yeah, and
Even much easier.
yeah.
Every time they were referred to the Syrians, it was there.
Yeah, so like that's a good question though. I don't have a good answer for it, but that's a good question. See if this one says anything about that. It's not. It's
NIV.
so it's they all in the notes here. It doesn't call them Syrians. It calls them the Ammonites and like all that your name. So like so it's probably just a translational difference.
They like the Arabs.
Yeah, like it's
All the Arabs.
well, like you think about that world around Syria.
Yeah.
Syria, Iraq, all that stuff is all this area.
But they were like a real.
Yeah. So like so I have a feeling that's what's happening here. So all right, what else did you see in this?
He said defeated by Israel, right?
Yeah,
That's the end. I just, that kind of caught me.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Israel being what Israel is, and
Yeah.
to be defeated by Israel.
yeah, and that's the thing too is during this time, you gotta remember, Israel is very powerful. Like that's their like when you get into the realm of Solomon, like they were kind of top billing in the area type of thing. And so they're kind of getting to that, and all these kind of battles kind of show that going forward here. Hi, Elaine. Like it's good to see you. We just read chapter 10. So we just read chapter. I missed you coming in while we were reading, but yeah, we just finished chapter 10 of 2 Samuel. Okay. So what else did you notice from chapter 10?
David didn't go to God for guidance.
Oh, that's interesting.
When his ego was hurt by the treatment of his representatives.
Yeah. He just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
That's something that I missed. I shouldn't be missing stuff like that either. Like that's like
It
that.
seemed like quite the battle over
something like that. Like it just his appearance and his reputation. Like, okay, well, it's just so wrong.
Yeah. So it's quite a big battle. And if you look at the beginning of chapter 11, it says it happened in the spring of the year at the time when the kings go to battle. It kind of seems like it's referencing back. It's like this happened during all this.
I was reading in one of the study Bibles, it said because of the ground was all muddy all winter.
Yeah.
They never went to battle until spring.
Okay.
And they could get food because the farmers were planting.
Okay. Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah.
The study Bible. I'm only going to go to war when it's convenient. And they'd have food for their horses, and they were on about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why they waited till better weather.
It's
Who wants to fight in the cold?
yeah. Well, it's you see battle tactics change constantly. Like that's like the American Revolutionary War is a good example of that, where battle tactics changed, and so, but we don't fight like World War I or the Civil War anymore. That trench warfare style. We don't do that anymore, and so it's always changing and adjusting. Kind of depends on the weapons and what happens around it, but yeah. So like if they can't get food, they wouldn't do that. But it kind of seems to me, and I don't know if I'm right or not, but it kind of seems like it's kind of talking about maybe going back to this. All this stuff kind of happened in the midst of all of this. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe we can find out more, but that kind of hit me. So it's this battle is interesting though, because he has that thing happen to his servants. And I looked at the notes of like their buttocks are like something is cut down to their buttocks and all that stuff. That's the only thing in history that says that type of thing. So we don't really know what it means.
But it was because this was an embarrassment to the soldiers.
Yeah.
That study Bible when it was.
Yeah. Just
about that.
just a general embarrassment. Yeah. And
Same with
yeah. You cut the
insult.
Yeah, an insult. Yeah. So like that's, so it's kind of degrading. And I think it's interesting that Lee talked about that he did not ask God.
Yeah, that's true.
What was going in, which we're definitely seeing in this book. That's the pattern. Like these kings are doing well when they stop and they ask God which way to go, and things aren't going well when they're not. That's definitely the pattern in this.
And then they seem to spoil their children.
Seem to spoil their children.
Well, even David. Let the kids kind of go wild, and then that one daughter got raped by the half brother, and it makes you wonder what were they thinking?
What are they thinking? I think it's
they're too busy with their own stuff to bother with the kids.
Yeah. I still think we still see that today too. Like this. And now one thing I noticed I thought was interesting at the end of verse 18. Then the Syrians fled before Israel, and David killed 700 charioteers, again with the sevens. So remember, and then you have 40,000 horsemen. So 7 and 40s are interesting numbers. I can't say what that exactly means, but those aren't exactly bad numbers either. So there's, if I didn't say it last week, Steve, like it's, the way I kind of view numbers in the Bible is that they're like emojis, like a happy emoji, something like a fireworks emoji. It's not really saying anything definitive, but it's giving an idea. A lot of times numbers are like that. So like 6 kind of has an idea of incompleteness. 7 has completeness.
Here it says the 700.
Yeah.
Evidently a copy is a mistake.
Oh, really?
It says 7,000.
Okay, so 700, 7,000. It's still giving off.
Yeah.
Giving similar things with the 7 there. So yeah. All right. Was there anything else in this one? So we probably have a lot to talk about in the next one.
So basically, in 19, when the other kings saw that Israel defeated them, it was kind of like backed off.
Yeah.
And then peace.
Yeah.
They buckled under.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let someone else go to war first. And if they lose, you're going to... Yeah. That's a great game.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go into 11 here. Let's go into 11. So we'll share the screen. And we'll read about David and Bathsheba.
It happened in the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem.
So it's referencing that.
Then it happened one evening that David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful to behold. So David sent and inquired about the woman, and someone said,
"Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?"
Then David sent messengers and took her. And she came to him, and he lay with her, for she was cleansed from her impurity. And she returned to her house. And the woman conceived. So she sent and told David.
I am with child.
Then David sent to Joab.
Send me Uriah the Hittite.
And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah had come to him, David asked how Joab was doing, and how the people were doing, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah,
Go down to your house and wash your feet.
So Uriah departed from the king's house, and a gift of food from the king followed him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and did not go down to his house. So when they told David, saying, Uriah did not go down to his house, David said to Uriah,
Did you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?
The ark and Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go to my house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? As you live, and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing.
Wait here today also, and tomorrow I will let you depart.
So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. Now when David called him, he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. And at evening he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but he did not go down to his house. In the morning it happened that David wrote a letter to Joab, and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter,
Set Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retreat from him, that he may be struck down and die.
So it was, while Joab besieged the city, that he assigned Uriah to a place where he knew there were valiant men. Then the men of the city came out and fought with Joab. And some of the people of the servants of David fell, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger,
When you have finished telling the matters of the war to the king, if it happens that the king's wrath rises, and he says to you, Why did you approach so near to the city when you fought? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who struck Abimelech, the son of Jerubbesheth? Was it not a woman who cast a piece of millstone on him from the wall, so that he died in Thebez? Why did you go near the wall? Then you shall say, Your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also.
So the messenger went and came and told David all that Joab had sent by him.
Surely the men prevailed against us, and came out to us in the field. Then we drove them back as far as the entrance of the gate. The archers shot from the wall at your servants, and some of the king's servants are dead. And your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also.
Thus you shall say to Joab, do not let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it. So encourage him.
When the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when her mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord.
Okay. All right. All the fun things. So, let's see. I want to say something big about this before we get into it. And that is that this is not positive on David, this story. And that is supremely odd and weird in historical annals of kings. The fact that this story is written in this way about this king is very, very, very odd. Like like most kings do not allow bad things to be written about them. So like it's you can't understate that, and how it's sitting in our book today is a big deal. It's a big deal. And so that I think it tells you something about how all of this is working. And so yeah. So what kind of stood out to you there?
I think I know where the inspiration for a lot of soap operas came from.
Oh yeah? It's got it's like The Young and the Restless and all those things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's no, this definitely reeks of that, of betrayal and all those things. Yeah. So what else kind of, there's tons of details in here.
Pretty callous of David to just put him in battle and kill him,
Oh yeah.
He was really looking out for his interests.
Yeah.
Not.
And so something that adds, as I was reading all this, I had never really realized it before, but Uriah and Bathsheba are people that are important, and how we can tell is that Bathsheba's father's mentioned. So like that's verse 3. So David said and inquired about the woman, and someone said, is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam? If she was a nobody, like the dad would not be getting mentioned. Like that's understanding that we might know who he is, type of thing. So she's someone that's important. Also, Uriah is kind of talked about in similar regards. He's probably an officer. Bathsheba wouldn't be with just some infantry guy.
No.
Yeah, type of thing. So she was important, and he would have probably been up pretty high in his rankings as well. Also by how Joab kind of mourns Uriah kind of a little bit, kind of shows that. When we were reading at the beginning of 11, I thought it was interesting how this is, and how it says it's all the same people. That battle from chapter 10, this happened in the middle of that battle. So if we can then remember kind of how that battle came about, like that with David's pride getting hit and all those things, and that all this is connected in here, this kind of story that isn't so good on David. So I don't know, did anyone notice anything else?
Line 4.
Yeah, verse 4.
Yep. It says, she, Bathsheba, had just purified herself after her period.
Yeah.
So that's a normal bathing ritual. So was she trying to seduce David, or was this just an innocent?
So there's
Might have been willing.
Yeah, willing to. So one of the things I read, it says it's definitely a more modern interpretation that she was trying to seduce David because she was up on the roof doing this regular thing. Go ahead.
Means as being required to purify herself.
Yeah.
This would be something she would be required to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you normally bathe on the roof. If that was in a normal, no,
Depends if it's a nice day, you know.
I know they used to sleep on the roof at some
Yeah.
So this is also said to the creed that she was not already pregnant.
Yeah. And so Diane just said the bigger one is that she was not already pregnant. Is the big thing that this shows.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah. Is that's the classic version of this, is that it shows that she's not pregnant. And then also a more modern interpretation with her on the roof is that she was showing off a little. But that's the classic rabbis really don't view it as that. And so that's, could that be? Possibly. Again, that's...
I'm just surprised at the mourning period for her. They said 7 days, and give you some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
You would think it would be a longer period than 7 days, wouldn't you?
Yeah. That's 7 days.
And then he married her right after the mourning, so
yeah,
that was pretty quick.
Yeah. It's so quick. It's
unbelievable.
Oh, we got rid of him. Let's see. Did anyone else notice anything? There's a lot. I could just keep on going, but
I have a question.
Yeah.
The very last sentence. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord.
Yes.
Part in this?
I think all of it.
All of it.
I think all of it. Like it's...
But Sheba and the way he's fighting. And
yeah. Like that's, I think all of it. Like, yeah, David ends up becoming, well, he already is kind of a man of war. And that's kind of becomes his downfall at the end of all this.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're in a battle that they maybe shouldn't be in. And then all of this with Bathsheba happens in the middle of that. It's kind of like that old lesson when your parents talk to you about, well, it's like the company you keep, just like that. That's it. It can kind of lead down these roads. And so I think it's just all of this, because then he goes out of his way to deal with Uriah, to cover up this. And remember, Uriah is, so when you were out, we talked about how Bathsheba, because it mentions her father, would be someone of nobility, we would call today. So someone that was higher. And then also Uriah was most likely like a commanding officer too. Like that he wouldn't be some low like infantryman. Like these are our higher people. And so
I have a question in regards to that. I guess I'm a little confused on basically from verse 6 to 12 or 13, just kind of this, it seems like a set aside scene of Uriah being somehow in town. Like you said, maybe since of his rank, he wasn't in the field at that time for some reason. And David by David.
Yeah, verse 7 has David communicating with Joab, who was mentioned in that previous chapter as like the leader of the armies. And he asked Joab, bring him back home. And the whole point is to get Uriah to sleep with his wife. That's the whole point. And so, but Uriah is a better servant of the king than even David himself. Yeah, so like
I don't understand that. Why
what
the idea why?
so David wants to cover up that Bathsheba's pregnant. So he sleeps with Bathsheba and she gets pregnant, and he's trying to cover it up. So he has the commander of his armies, Joab, bring Uriah home. And so Uriah comes home, and David tells him, let's see, where's the verse? Verse 8. Well, first off, he's like, "Oh, how great are the battles? You know, tell me all about your things." And like, those are some great stories, Uriah. Then verse 8, he says to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." Like he's based like that. That's
Fine. So why doesn't he go home then?
Because he was more patriotic than he gets credit for.
yeah. Uriah is he's like, well, all my people are in battle, all my soldiers. Why would I go home and get my feet washed? Feet what's used in all the other translations? Yeah, feet. Feet is often a euphemism for another member that guys have. Like that's like in the Bible, like it's in there too. So that could be like a cue of something else besides just bathing, like all that stuff. So yeah.
I don't get this because I don't know all those little.
That's why you're in Bible study. Like that's you know, like that's, and so it's often that, and so you can kind of see it here if that was the case. But Uriah he doesn't do it. He doesn't go down. He sleeps guarding the king. Like, so even though David slept with his wife, he's still more honorable than David. He's like, oh, I'm going to watch over you. If I can't be in battle, I'm going to watch over you. Yeah. And so David's like, dang it. And so David is like, you gotta do that. So he slept with the servants, and let's see here.
So and stay here one more day.
Yeah. So here we'll get to that
too.
So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. So David's like, why didn't you go to your house? Like over there in verse 11. And Uriah says to David, and this is interesting, the ark in Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my lord Joab and his servants of my lord are encamped in open fields. Shall I go to my house, eat and drink and lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do a thing. Like, he's honorable. Like he's saying that you know, the ark is in a tent. You know, like all the armies are in tents out there. None of my battle buddies are all in comfortability. Why should I be in comfortability? Which is a little bit of an indictment against David. A little bit. David more than. Yeah, David should be in battle like that. That's, notice what it said in verse 1. I mean, like, it's when the kings go to battle. Like that's, and he's home. Like, there's a bunch of things where David is where he shouldn't be. And so David's like, all right, well, wait around. This is your verses, Steve. Like, David's like, wait around for a couple more days, and then you can go home. And so while he has him waiting around, in verse 13, he gets him drunk. And why does he get him drunk? Well, go home drunk, and maybe you'll sleep with your wife, or at least think that you will. You know, like that's kind of, it's all nefarious, right? And even when
it's very subtext, like you're supposed to infer.
Do what?
Sorry. There's probably a lag in my connection. I said it seems very subtext, like you're supposed to infer. Like, it's not telling me how, and like, unless I had my footnote, I'd have no idea.
Yeah, there's definitely some subtext.
Saying go home.
But I think I think that's what, you know, Uriah says. Let's see, where does it? But yeah, I mean, it's definitely
to eat and get drunk.
Yeah.
So you don't say go home again, or at least it's not written that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, why is he having him just hang around his place?
Yeah, so like I think he and let's see. So I think at the end of verse 13, when it said, so verse 13, the second half, and at evening he went to lie in his bed with the servants of his Lord, but he did not go down to his house. And I think that implies that was David's desire for him to go down to his own house. And so David finally is like, well, I offered it to you. I got you drunk. You won't do what I want. So he sends a letter to Joab, and who is the head guy, and he's like, put Uriah in the front. And it's not, and I remember being little and being told, oh, we put him on the front of the line. That's not what it says here. It says that put Uriah in the front of the hottest battle and then retreat from him.
Yeah, that's
like that's, yeah, I mean, it's straight up murder. Like, it's not like, oh, he's an effective soldier. Like that's like he has him retreat from battle.
That says here that he may be struck down and die.
Yeah, that he may be struck down and die. Like, there's no question to what's going on here.
Okay, what do you think Joab figured out? What?
No, I think Joab knows exactly what's going on. Joab knows exactly what's going on. Like, that's, and also like all the movies and TV shows you watch about, like, you know, like kings and battles and all that stuff, and just political, you know, chicanery and all that stuff. This all sounds like, it's kind of like what Midge said with soap operas and like that. This is all stuff that it all rhymes with just the nastiness of our human nature here. And so Uriah the Hittite fell also, and so then you have Joab. He writes this letter to David, and it's kind of cloaked in all this other language, and it's kind of, so like verse 20 I thought was interesting. If it happens that the king's wrath rages, and he says to you, why do you approach so near to the city that you fought? You know, it's kind of almost like this cloaked language of talking about David's anger and all like that. And then, oh, by the way, at the very end, right before 22, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also.
Yeah, by the way.
Yeah, by the way. And like, it's just not, it's nefarious. The whole thing.
Send the letter by Uriah is kind of really low.
Yeah, and Uriah had to carry his own death note.
Letter.
Yeah. Like that, he had to go to Joab and like, here, this is from the king, and Joab reads it. Oh, like that's, oh, okay. And so, let's see. And so David then, verse 25, David sends back to Joab, you know, do not let this thing displease you. You could tell that then that Joab knows what's up. Do not let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as the other. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it. So encourage him. Like this, like it almost sounds like Ash's business.
Yeah, it's all politics.
Yeah, it's all politics. Like I was getting into it with some people online the other day, and it's these folks that they're the ones we kind of mentioned a few months ago that they're like white Christian nationalists. They kind of want to. They want to go back. They want fascism, and you know, they're very racist. They don't want women in charge of anything, and like all this stuff. And just talking to them, and I was like, we don't have to have this level of corruption. And well, they're like, oh, that's just the nature of power. And just reading that reminded me of that answer that he gave me. And I was just like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. It often is, but it's not. We shouldn't accept it. You know, beyond like, yes, this is the life that we live in, but we should constantly go for people that are honest and things like that, and demand it. And demand it.
Area, right?
Yeah. And demand it. So like that's, and so then you have the 26 to the end of the chapter, 26 to 27 is kind of the wrap up of all this. So when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And then her mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house. She became his wife, and then bore him a son. And the thing that David had done displeased the Lord.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Who is Solomon's mother? King Solomon.
Bathsheba.
Oh, really?
Never know. Same line.
Yeah, no, Bathsheba.
It wasn't the first.
Yeah.
The baby they had before died.
Yeah, this baby dies.
What happened to Bathsheba here?
But she became his wife.
She had Solomon.
Yeah.
She had the baby that died, and then she had Solomon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the wife from Uriah. Yeah, David had a lot of wives.
He had a lot of wives.
He always did.
Yeah, he had a lot of wives. And she's not even the first.
Yeah. So,
Well, listen, the story's weird. The story's weird. The story's odd. Like, and because there's other sons of, which we'll get into in 13, you start getting into Absalom, and that's one of David's sons that causes him a bunch of consternation. And so she gives birth to a son, and the thing that David did displeased the Lord. And I think it's if you think about how Saul came about, you know, Saul was looking for the lost donkeys, which in the sermon, I'm very proud of this because it's childish, and because that's our sermon this week. We're like Saul keeps losing his ass, but that we won't go. You know, come on and go into there. Like that. But it's this idea of all these like comedy of errors that he ends up before Samuel type of thing. And that's kind of how this reads too, is that he keeps trying to make it right. He keeps trying to, like, he did this sin, he keeps trying to cover it up, and he just can't until he finally has to kill the guy. And so, so I think it's kind of almost like a similar comedy of errors going forward there.
So when he did all this,
Mm-hmm.
and then Bathsheba became his wife,
Yeah.
even if someone suspected it, they would never say anything, right?
Well,
The king?
yeah, probably. And that's this chapter coming up with Nathan. Like, that's because Joab realizes what's going on. He's like, oh, Uriah did something. And so let's read 12. Let's get through 12 before we're done today, because it's a good halting point. All right, so let's do chapter 12. Let's see here. No coughing, it's not allowed. Oh, come on, chapter 12.
You want me to leave the room?
Oh no.
Hell.
lost 12.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no 12. Oh my goodness, what's going on with my word of promise app? Here, let me stop sharing for a second. Let me go and see what's going on with this.
I wanted to hear 12.
You will. They may not be on word of promise though. 12.
That's all.
Oh, why did word of promise just die on me? Oh man, it just did. All right, let's see. See the whole. Yeah, the site's down. All right, option number 2. Hold on one second. Bible Gateway. I'm gonna have to log in. Is this my password? Nope. That's not gonna get my password either. Oh man, maybe I don't. All right. 2 Samuel. See, it's a comedy of errors. Like, is it going to be on the good side or the bad side? I don't know. All right, well, we'll hear it read from the New International Version, and I'll have to just let me make it bigger. This isn't as good of a situation here, but it's not bad. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let me get it reading.
Second sound.
Oh, stop. All right. No, I'm gonna have to start it, and then I'll share the screen. All right, here we go.
The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, "There were two men in town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him." Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you, and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah, and if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Out of your own household I am going to bring calamity on you. Before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied, "The Lord has taken away your sin. You are not going to die. But because by doing this you have shown utter contempt for the Lord, the son born to you will die." After Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had borne to David, and he became ill. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted and spent the nights lying in sackcloth on the ground. The elders of his household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused, and he would not eat any food with them. On the 7th day the child died. David's attendants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they thought, while the child was still living, he wouldn't listen to us when we spoke to him. How can we now tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate. David noticed that his attendants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. "Is the child dead?" he asked. "Yes," they replied. "He is dead." Then David got up from the ground, after he had washed, put on lotions, and changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went to his own house, and at his request they served him food, and he ate. His attendants asked him, "Why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept, but now that the child is dead, you get up and eat." He answered, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. I thought, who knows? The Lord may be gracious to me and let the child live. But now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me." Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went to her and made love to her. She gave birth to a son, and they named him Solomon. The Lord loved him, And because the Lord loved him, he sent word through Nathan the prophet to name him Jedediah. Meanwhile, Joab fought against Rabbah of the Ammonites and captured the royal citadel. Joab then sent messengers to David, saying, I have fought against Rabbah and taken its water supply. Now muster the rest of the troops and besiege the city and capture it. Otherwise I will take the city, and it will be named after me. So David mustered the entire army and went to Rabbah and attacked and captured it. David took the crown from their king's head, and it was placed on his own head. It weighed a talent of gold, and it was set with precious stones. David took a great quantity of plunder from the city, and brought out the people who were there, consigning them to labor with saws and with iron picks and axes. And he made them work at brickmaking. David did this to all the Ammonite towns. Then he and his entire army returned to Jerusalem.
Okay. Hold on, I gotta stop it.
In the course of time.
It keeps on going. All right. Okay, so that one's not as fun to listen to, but there's some fascinating things going on here. We'll probably go over time just by a few minutes here, but that's all right. So, all right, what stood out to you? What stood out to you? Or what'd you think of Nathan's little parable at the beginning?
I'd read this several times, obviously.
Yeah.
When I was younger and I read it, I thought, I don't get it. And then it does. And when I finally read it and said, oh, what a great way to say, David, you goofed up.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was, everything was something.
Like there was, and there's two men in the city, a rich man and a poor man, and the rich man takes everything from the poor man. And that makes David very angry, which I think actually shows some that David is still a man of compassion, because I don't think many politicians today would be angry at a story like that. They'd be just like, oh, that's good business. But yeah, so he gets angry at this and wants that guy like killed. Like he goes, which is interesting. Like it's almost like he's a little high on himself again. You know, that it's like, I want that guy. You know, so it was at verse 5. So David's anger greatly aroused against the man. He's like, as the Lord lives, by God's own name, you know, like this man who's done this should surely die, and shall restore fourfold of the lamb, because he did this thing and because he had no pity. Like, and it's like, no, you're that guy, David. You're that guy. Like that's it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and the reason why this is so fascinating in all of this, we see it later on in the story, but in like verse 18, you see everyone else is so scared of David. Like the child is in the middle of dying or has died, and no one wants to tell David because they're all scared of him. That's what the officers around David's court think of him right here. And so the stones that Nathan has to come up to David to say this is another level. You know, like that's because everyone else is scared of him. Like it's like, who is he going to kill next? Like you can tell that's his reputation. Like that's that he's willing to just kill anyone. Let's see here. And Nathan says to David, like, you are him. And thus says the Lord God of Israel. You know, it's like, I have given you everything. I've given you everything. I love that line right before verse 9. It says, and if all of that had been too little, I would have given you more. You know, I've given you everything. And you killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword. Like this, it's not leaving any room for interpretation. Like it may have been the sword of an Ammonite, but you killed him. And I think verse 10 is fascinating. Now therefore The sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me and have taken your wife bride to be your wife. The sword shall never depart your house. It's like David really no longer has peace after this.
Sounds like a curse.
Yeah.
That's why his others.
Yeah, like Absalom in the next chapter wants the throne, like, which is one of his sons. And David dies wanting bloodshed of all these people. He doesn't die in peace. He dies scared that someone's going to take his throne. Like so you kind of see that, and let's see here. And so I even say curse. So verse 11, thus says the Lord, behold, I'll raise up adversity against you from your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of the sun, not in the darkness of night. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. Like that. That's so David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord, which is a big deal. And also, let it be known that these 2 chapters are in this book. Like, that's a big deal. It's a big deal that this even was recorded. And Nathan says that the Lord, this is verse 13, kind of the second half of it. The Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. However, because by this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme the child who was born to you, that he should surely die. Like, it's basically saying, like, you've lowered yourself in the estimation of so many people around you, and the son is going to die. And so the son ends up dying, and David is like fasting for the son, and like all these things. And when the son dies, no one wants to tell David because they're scared that he's going to kill him, because we've seen it. How many people has David offed? Like, as he's bringing peace to he's offed a lot of people. And and he realized, and verse 22 I think is very interesting, that they're like, why are you so calm about this now the son is dead? And he's like, while the child was alive, I fasted and wept. But who can tell whether the Lord will be gracious to me that the child may live? But now he's dead. Why should I fast?
That's an arrogant statement.
That's an arrogant statement?
Oh, yeah. I was, fasting, looking for God to do what I want, but he didn't. So that's with it. We eat now. That's arrogance.
Yeah, it's an odd statement. It's an odd statement. It's in the realm of the weird, in the realm of the real. Is what I meant to say. Like, it's like, when I read it, I heard, it's just like it's just in the middle of all the real stuff of life. But I see that point to the arrogance. I also, like, it's kind of the end of that arc of, like, he tried to hide it. He tried to hide that baby so much, and you'll never be able to see it anymore.
Now it's real liver.
Yeah. And so it's like that's I was talking to Sue about this. I didn't use these words. I haven't used these words actually in a while, but careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Deliberately do something wrong, and God's going to forgive me.
Yeah. Like, that's,
I think we all do that sometimes.
Yeah. And so, like, that's and I think that's, when we desire for power and all that stuff, like, careful what you wish for, you just
Actually.
you might get it. And that's, I always likened it, like, these are like pre-pandemic sermons where I said that stuff a lot. And so I always liken it to the dog that catches the squirrel. It just doesn't know what to do now. We're like, now what? Like, but be careful what you wish for. You just might get it there. And so David, comforted Bathsheba and sleeps with her, and has Solomon, which ends up becoming the next great king. But Solomon's kind of the beginning of the downfall.
Did you find it strange that he was in the line of Joseph when you talk, when they go back and give those lines in the New Testament? Mm-hmm. And actually Joseph was from the line that went through Solomon. Yeah. Where Mary went through Nathan. Yeah. So that kind of got me how God uses even those people that did a lot of bad things and they're still in his line.
Well, and that's the point of the sermon series, is like that rise and fall, is that Jesus never took the rise. Like the rise was after the fall. And so, and Jesus' line, as you're saying, is through all of this. And that is, Jesus doesn't come from the midst of a triumphant Davidic line. He comes to a people who've been captured and hurt and misused and like all of those things. And then Jesus doesn't try to exalt himself and hide things like David does. Like he willingly takes a fall in the humiliation of the cross. And so it's this kind of interesting way of looking at this. And let's see how does this end?
I have a question in 27.
Okay.
What is Joab basically saying to David, now act like a king and get out here and fight?
Oh, this whole thing with the crown is very interesting. Let's see. And Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah and I've taken the city's water supply. Gather the rest of the people, take the encamp city and take it. I mean, I think, I guess so. He's like, you should have been out here in battle the whole time, like this. And if we look at it the way you brought up chapter 10, where like the whole reason why they're in this battle anyway is to win is because of David's shame anyway, because like his servants were humiliated, and so Joab's just like, well, you need to get out here. You need to get out here. And then and then it's almost like this weird, I don't know if grotesque is the right word for it. Let me see how the Jewish Bible reads this. The very end of 12, talking about the crown. And so Joab here, he basically says, like, if you don't do it, I will do it, and I will take the city and be called after my name. Like Joab's like, you need to come and do your job. And so David mustered all the troops and marched on Rabbah, and he attacked it, captured it, and the crown was taken from the head of the king, and it was placed on David's head, and it weighed a talent of gold, heavy, big, huge king, right? And on it were precious stones. So it sounds gaudy, and I think it's meant to sound gaudy. And he also carried off vast amounts of booty from the city. He led out the people who lived there and set them to work with saws. All right. Let's talk about this. We got to talk about, I know we're running late, but we got to talk about this. Because this is coded language like crazy. So we got this huge gaudy king and crown on him, huge powers of the world type of thing. And then he lives out in these powers of the world. What does this sound like? So 31, he led out the people who lived there and set them to work with saws, iron threshing boards, iron axes, and assigned them to brick making.
Yeah.
Sounds like Egypt. So David has become Pharaoh.
Were they building his house at that time, that house of cedar?
That's coming. That's Solomon. Oh, like his own house.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're just talking about their own towns. I think they're in their own towns. They're not in Jerusalem. Because
isn't this Jerusalem they're talking about?
No, because the very next verse. It says, then David and the troops returned to Jerusalem. Yeah.
I was thinking that city they were.
I think it's in the cities that they conquered, that they made them slaves there. But that brick making word is not on accident there. Like he's basically using slave labor to build this. And so he's got this giant crown, this huge giant crown, and he's got his slaves now about him. Like it's a different image than what's often presented of David, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's we kind of sanitize him a little bit, and so but you still see God working through all this. This is the key. This is the key, is that God still works through all of this, and it doesn't celebrate this. It denigrates this type of attitude, but even through how gross all this is, God still works through it. Oh, and that's the key. And so we could see in our own lives, in our own peoples, in our own thing, that God still works through even our own grossness, the grossness of that we often do in the name of the church, grossness that we do in politics, like that's. And it doesn't say that we should do those things or be happy about them, but it does mean that we're not alone, and that we haven't done enough to kick God out of our lives. And I think that is the message of the book, and what's going on, and that's basically the sermon on Sunday, even though it's talking about Saul. But that's. But there. So, did anyone have any other things you want to mention in this one? This is one of the biggest stories in the Bible.
Yeah, it's just a guy who was so good and turned to the bad side.
Yeah.
And it's just every time I see this and go through the, it's just kind of like the man was an idiot.
Well, yeah, and that's. And that's what we see. Like these guys they can never get it right. They can never get it right. Elaine, you want to say something? You unmuted yourself.
Yeah, just one thing that jumped out at me was that the baby died on the 7th day. So there.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good. That's whenever you see those numbers like that around some big activity. That's one of those like completeness, like lived all of his life, good days, like good numbers is not. I'm like God ordained kind of number, type of thing there, and so that's a good observation. That's a good observation. Like that's. So was there anything else? Anyone have any other questions or anything? So the story of this book is really like, even though that we may be scoundrels, God is still working through these things. That we should never celebrate the scoundrels or our own scoundrel behavior, but we should never think that God is not working through us, and I think that's the good news there. And we'll see how all the twists and turns of the rest of David's life, because we still have 10 chapters, 13. A few more chapters. So like it'll be good, which I'm happy about, because that means we won't catch up in Bible study to the sermon. To the sermon. I feel like that's everything. I'm a very selfish person, and this is helping. Like I watch the recordings of these before I write the sermons, and so like that's but good deal. All right. Well, for everyone watching on YouTube and the recording, thanks for joining us today.